Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Google and Android and sideloading APKs. And we've talked about this one in the past. In fact, a lot of people have talked about this one. It's been a relatively hot topic in the Android community, in the mobile community, in the tech community, in the gaming community, and even more. And that's Google's proposed decision to block sideloading APKs unless the developers have been verified. And it seems now that there may be a way around this. Not all hope is lost, provided you're experienced with Android. So it appears here, if you're familiar with ADB, which stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Android Debug Bridge, depending on how you wanted to interpret that, you may still be able to install APKs that are unverified. And this comes from a Q&A right on Google's website. Will Android Debug Bridge install work without registration? And here's the answer. As a developer, you are free to install apps without verification with ADB. This is designed to support developers' need to develop, test apps that are not intended yet or not yet ready to distribute to wider consumer population. Now, this information is up right on the Android website, and if you're interested and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links will be within the link at the bottom of the description. I don't hide my sources. Now, obviously, we're going to have to wait and see what happens moving forward when Google decides to roll out these changes in 2026 and then globally in 2027. I'm assuming that a lot of people are going to be learning about ADB and how to utilize that to install unverified apps. Could be wrong about that one, but I don't think so. And on a quick side note here, without going into too much of a tangent, I don't think we should be calling this sideloading anymore. And I think I just called it sideloading earlier on in the video. I got to break my habits. I think we should just be calling this stuff installing. I mean, we're trying to install an APK on a device we own. That's it. End of story. That might be a hot take. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But overall here, I think this is good and bad. The bad part is, well, I don't think Google should be pushing forward these changes at all, restricting installing of APKs unless the developer is verified. But the good part here is that there's already a workaround, and this workaround arguably will educate people even more about how their mobile device works and how Android works. And I would say that could be a good thing. However, one of the big drawbacks here is that the normal, easy way to use ADB, maybe not the easy way, but the standard way, the straightforward way is to connect to a PC via an OTG cable. However, there are ways to do it wirelessly. And these apps are free and also open source and on GitHub. And if you wanted to learn more about them, again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description. But there is a Shizuku. I might have mispronounced that one. There's also here a Shell U. And there's also install with options. So overall here, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts about Google's decision, which I probably already know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about the fact that there's already a workaround for this. And let me know your thoughts about the workaround options. And speaking about learning about things and also acronyms that stand for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano. Next up here, we're talking about CSEDI, No Bad Games Collection. And this to me is a very interesting initiative overall and one that I would recommend learning more about. Now, CSEDI stands for, well, you know the one definition. The other one here, the one acronym. The other acronym here is Can't Someone Else Do It? And basically what they're going through here is the entire game library for almost every single system out there, at least retro systems for now, and determining which games are worth playing and which ones aren't. Now, it is worth noting that this list is nowhere near complete. There are systems that haven't yet been looked at, like SNES or NES and that stuff. There are some systems out there that have been looked at in significant detail, and there's still a lot of work left to do. But they say here, the spirit of the rules are only the best version of the best games. At your discretion, you can make exceptions as to any of the rules below using this spirit. If you really love a game, keep it. And games should have a 7.0 or better score on Metacritic. If the points between the critic and the user score average 7.0, it's included. If Metacritic isn't available, use Moby Games. If Moby Games doesn't have it, aggregate reviews from the web and average out. Now, on top of that, there are a couple of exceptions here and ones I think are worth pointing out. I mean, I'll just point out two that I think are important. 2B always puts the fans first. Check for modern outlook. Sometimes games that were poorly reviewed at the time end up with a cult following. And there's a handful of games that I love that were very poorly reviewed. And 2C, warning, fan-translated games often don't have Western reviews. Just because someone put the effort into translating doesn't make it a good game. Watch YouTube reviews, translate Famitsu article scans, or play it yourself. Now, all of this information, including the system, the games list, the progress, DLC, and even more is up on a Google Doc. And the Google Doc is a living document, which means it continually receives updates. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire people to pick up and try some games they maybe have never heard of before and maybe never checked out before. And speaking about checking stuff out, next up we're talking about kind of the exact opposite, not checking stuff out. And we're talking about the whole Nintendo Switch 2 dev kit situation that we've talked about in previous videos and has been talked about, I would say, across the industry, where it's been perceived that it's very hard for developers to get their hands on a Nintendo Switch 2 dev kit. And the dev kits that have been given out have been seemingly given out at complete random. So anyways, there seems to be even more information on the matter here, more clarity. Go Nintendo has put out a brand new article titled Anonymous Devs Shed Even More Light on the Switch 2 Dev Kit Drought. Now, from my understanding, this has been translated from Spanish, so it may not be 100% perfect, but I would say the overall spirit of it is probably there. There is no formal traditional application process yet to request development kits for the Switch 2. Unlike previous platforms from Nintendo, the usual staged approval method is not in place. Current kit allocations are done manually, one by one, based on the specific game rather than the studio track record. I would say that is a huge point and one that is very interesting overall and very weird. I mean, let me know your thoughts on this one. Hypothetically here, a game studio who may have made some pretty good games for Nintendo previously and maybe made them a ton of money would get first dibs on a Switch 2 dev kit. You would think so, right? I don't know here. Anyways, I guess the selection process appears to be arbitrary and subjective, influenced by internal interests and preferences. So I guess playing favorites. And it's unclear whether this is due to a shortage of manufactured dev kits or it's a strategy to prioritize select partners and titles ahead of launch before the broader third-party competition intensifies. So maybe there's a financial incentive that was paid to Nintendo to get these Switch 2 dev kits. Who knows? I mean, you'd think from a business perspective, Nintendo would be pumping out those dev kits to have as many games as possible on their system, to sell the system and to make the money. It's not rocket science. Anyways, here, I think this paragraph kind of sums up how a lot of people are thinking. Nintendo is always doing things that makes even the most supportive fans scratch their heads. And this is certainly one of those instances. Hopefully Nintendo opens up access to Switch 2 dev kits soon, or at least we get some information on why exactly Nintendo is going this route. I would venture a guess and say we're never going to know why Nintendo went this route. And speaking about routes, next up we're talking about Linux, and Linux is going down a route to better gaming performance. There, I was able to tie in that segue. Anyways, here we're talking about Wine 10.15, and this is very exciting if you are on Linux. So listen to this. With Wine 10.15 expected to be released next Friday, there will be initial support for using the NTSYNC driver found within the Linux kernel. That driver is currently marked as broken. Now, if you wanted to learn more about this stuff, again, like everything we talk about, links to these articles and everything else are within the GitHub link in the bottom of the description. Anyways, they say the NTSYNC driver enhances Wine Proton Steam Play gaming by better matching the Windows NT synchronization primitives to allow for better gaming performance. And that, I would say, is super exciting considering I would say gaming performance on Linux is already pretty darn good. This is going to make it even better. Now, I am really curious to see what real-world testing results are going to bring with this, depending on the kernel and the distribution and the setup here. Someone has tested out Resident Evil 3, and previously they were getting 75 FPS, and with these changes with NTSYNC, they're getting 88 FPS. And I would say in this specific situation, that is a really nice bump. And speaking about bumps, next up we're talking about Hollow Knight Silksong, and it seems that Hollow Knight Silksong review scores are taking a bit of a bump in China. And that's because of translation problems. So Matthew Griffin from Team Cherry says, to our Chinese-speaking fans, we appreciate you letting us know about quality issues with the current simplified Chinese translation of Hollow Knight Silksong. We'll be working to improve the translation over the coming weeks. Thank you for your feedback and support. So based on my understanding here, the Chinese translations in Hollow Knight Silksong read like a wuxia novel. I might have mispronounced that. instead of conveying the game's tone, and it's of rather low quality and really ruins the game experience. Now, taking a look at Hollow Knight Silksong on Steam, and just the other day when we were talking about this game, I believe it had an overwhelmingly positive review score. And right now it's sitting a little bit down from that at very positive, still respectable, but not overwhelmingly positive. Now I can kind of see now why Steam has these new language filters to filter it by language, because I'm assuming that if we take a look at the Chinese language one, it's not going to have a very positive review score. Overall, this game has a mostly positive when factoring in all languages. I mean, if we just click C language breakdown here, and well, we can see which one is the red. Simplified Chinese is mostly negative. Now, I'm not going to lie here. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below on a couple of things. First, the game not being translated correctly or well. I mean, from my own personal experience, I've played a bunch of games and really enjoyed them that were not translated into English. I didn't know what the characters were saying. I didn't really know what the story was about, but the gameplay was good. And that being said, I've missed out on the entire vibes of certain games. I mean, I've played the game again with an English fan translation, and it really changed the overall experience. So I can kind of understand the bad reviews for a game that's not translated well. And secondly here, let me know your thoughts about the very positive review score. I believe it used to be overwhelmingly positive, and now it's very positive. After playing the game a while, has your overall thoughts of the game changed? And speaking about hearing your thoughts or different versions of things, I really don't know how I'm going to segue from that last segment to this one. If you know a better way, let me know in the comments below. But we're talking about KDE. Now, if you're on Linux, you're probably a fan of or at least aware of KDE in terms of a desktop environment. And you're probably also aware of KDE Neon, which is based on Ubuntu. But you may not be aware about KDE Linux, which is a brand new distribution currently in alpha based on Arch. Now, I'm not joking with you. This is 100% real, and I am very curious to see where this goes from here. Although it's Arch based, it is an immutable distribution, so it's not really Arch per se. I mean, if you're familiar with Arch, if you use Arch, by the way, you're probably very familiar with tweaking settings and tinkering around with things just to get things working just right. And this is, well, it's a lot different than that. Yes, you can change things at a very, you got to use layering, and that's something for another video altogether. So this is, I don't want to say it's a set it and forget it distribution, but the customization aspect of it will be a lot more limited than a standard Arch distribution. If you're into Linux stuff, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. I mean, if you're a fan of Bazzite, you may be a fan of the fact that this is an immutable distro and gets you into Arch Linux. Well, Arch per se, I mean, it's not technically Arch. I guess it technically is. That's a debate for another day. But at the same time here, it is immutable. It's by KDE. And if you're looking for something more close to Arch, then this may be up your alley. And speaking about stuff you might be interested in, well, hopefully the whole video you're interested in. But next up here, we're talking about Rayman. And if you're a fan of Rayman, specifically Rayman 2 and 3, and you're a fan of fan remakes and fan creations in Unreal Engine, you might be a fan of this. So Rayman 2 Redreamed demo has launched over on GameJolt, and judging by the trailer, this game looks super cool so far. The game has been recreated in Unreal Engine here, and although it's just a demo, I think it has shaped up very nicely. And secondly here, Rayman 3 Havoc Reignited has also just launched, also fan created in Unreal Engine. And I think by two different teams altogether. Maybe I'm wrong with that one. But taking a look on YouTube here, and the videos have been produced by two completely different accounts. And I would say this one also looks absolutely incredible and is also available. And speaking about stuff looking great, but stuff that hasn't released yet. Next up, we're talking about the Perfect Dark PC port and high resolution textures. So if you're familiar with the Perfect Dark PC port, you might be excited to know that high definition textures are in the works. And speaking about stuff in the works, next up we're talking about the Dreamcast and the Dreamcolor Plus. This is a brand new controller that features a color screen at the top there for in-game information being displayed in color. If you're a fan of the Dreamcast, if you're a fan of Dreamcast controllers and always wanted just a little bit more out of that screen, Well, this may be up your alley. It's going to be debuted September 13th and 14th. So if you are headed to the Canal 3 Expo, this is something you may want to check out. And I'm very curious to see if it is going to be mass produced, what the pricing is going to be, and what the availability is going to be, and also how good it's going to be. And speaking about wondering how good something is going to be, last up here we're talking about the Digiera HoloMax handheld gaming PC. So this thing was just unveiled, featuring an AMD Ryzen AI9 HX370 CPU, 64 gigs of RAM, 4 terabytes of storage, and an 80-watt battery. You can bet that this is not going to be cheap. So it appears there will be 3 different configurations, with pricing starting at $1,700 give or take. I mean, $1,699 if you wanted to be specific. $2,000 or $2,400 overall. Definitely not cheap. Although you could say the specs in this thing are also not cheap. It's also worth noting too, the low-end version of this comes with an 8840U, not the AI9 HX370. But anyways, here the big selling feature I think for this handheld is going to be that screen, the 2D to 3D conversion. So let me know your thoughts on the upcoming HoloMax. Do you think it's innovative? Are you a fan of that over 10-inch screen on it? Are you a fan of what the screen can do? And are you a fan of the price? We've seen handhelds get more and more expensive over time, and I would say that these prices are not cheap. And at these prices, I would argue a gaming laptop, or just a laptop in general, or a gaming PC, well, I guess if you're looking for something more portable, a gaming laptop would be far more attractive. Maybe not here, maybe that's a hot take. But I, for one, am in the camp of less expensive handhelds that maybe can't do quite as much. I mean, the Steam Deck to me is kind of pushing the limit on what I'm willing to spend on a handheld. Maybe I'm just cheap. Let me know your thoughts about that one in the comments below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. I switched around microphones in this video just for fun. It's a Sunday, I was bored, and I just figured that would be something fun to do for the video. Anyways, we talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss what we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.